Welcome back. I hope everyone is having a great Feast of Tabernacles 2025. Since we are still in super high watch times, this is a repost of an older video. I wanted to freshen up my channel because people usually don't watch videos that are several years old. I have a few older videos that are mostly explanations of celestial events that I feel are great anchors for timelines as we head into the end of days. I'll try editing out the fluff and see how it goes. This one is inspired by Luke 22:10, when Jesus sent Peter and John to prepare for the Last Supper. They asked, "Where should they prepare?" And he said to them, "Lo, in your entering into the city, there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him to the house where he doth go in." So, this is episode 10 of my new series here. If you just now landed on my channel, take a front row seat, hit the subscribe and like buttons, turn down the lights, and let's get this show on the road. And for those who are helping me to keep my channel going, thanks for the lift. Today, let's look at the age of Aquarius. These ages on God's clock are due to what is called our precession, which causes it to appear that our backdrop of stars is ever so slowly flowing across the heavens, like a slow, lazy river throughout time. So our stars over long periods of time will not always rise in the same place. For instance, if you are watching the equinoxes, when the sun will rise twice each year exactly due east, once in the spring and once in the fall of each year. The point on God's clock where these equinoxes occur in the heavens will actually shift by 1 degree every 72 years. And over the course of 128 years, more than a lifetime, the place in the heavens marking the equinox will shift by 1 day. So, as you can see in these two screenshots that I'm showing, first off, that red letter E that you can hopefully see here on the sun, that's the cardinal point of due east, and it is also the horizon line in stellarium. If I were to turn on the horizon line in this program, everything below that letter E would be blacked out because it would all be below the horizon, and you would be seeing the sunrise on the horizon at exactly due east, on that letter E. And you will see that in a lot of my videos when I turn on the horizon line. So, on the left here, I'm showing what the backdrop of stars looked like at the beginning of the age of Pisces, around 144 BC. The spring equinox occurred sort of below the tail of that first fish of Pisces. Then, on the right screen, I'm showing the year 2024. And we see what the backdrop of stars looks like in the east at the spring equinox now, with the sun rising under the belly of that other fish of Pisces, the fish on the right side. In very ancient times, that fish on the right wasn't even seen as a fish. It was seen as a swallow that was tethered. So the naming, or what these star patterns represent, can change over time and over cultures. So now you can get a good idea of just how far the backdrop of stars will appear to shift in over 2,000 years. This represents how far the stars have moved during the entire age of Pisces. In this screenshot from 2024, and about a month after the equinox, you can see that the sun takes little steps each day and continues on his merry way through the 12 constellations and making his complete rounds in 365 days, and will again be sitting on that big red E below the belly of Pisces next year at sunrise at the spring equinox. So while the sun and the planets are all zipping around the track and through the constellations on God's clock, all the stars that are rising due east or setting due west in the heavens will not change as far as which stars are actually rising due east each day, if that makes sense. In these screenshots here, I'm showing various stars that we see rising nearly due east these days, at various times throughout the 24 hours each day. All the stars that will rise due east will remain the same throughout the year. It's called the equatorial grid and a great navigation system because over a whole lifetime, the backdrop of stars isn't really going to change that much. We can barely even perceive the shift. We will see this same thing all the time, no matter what time of year it is, because we don't really perceive that this curtain of stars is moving at all. It appears to be very stable and only shifting by 1 day every 128 years. So that's probably the basics of God's clock that we really need to understand to investigate the changing of the ages. It's all about which stars or which constellations are rising in the east or due east. So the next step is to know that the stars also rise at an angle. And the closer you are to the equator, the less of an angle they rise at. And the further toward the north or south poles you are viewing from, the steeper that angle will get as far as the stars rising. So I often choose the Giza Plateau in Egypt, where the Great Pyramid is, as a good fun location to view things from, since the stars aren't really rising at too much of an angle when viewing from this location. This is more of an overall view, so you can see what I'm looking at here when we zoom in super close in a minute. The E for east is the 0-degree line of the equatorial grid, showing the angle that the stars will be rising at on the exact line of due east. So what I'm saying is, as the stars rise, anything on this 0-degree line that I've got the red arrows on will be what is rising exactly due east throughout the 24-hour period. And you can follow this 0-degree line all the way around in a big circle to see which stars are exactly falling where. What I'm most interested in here is taking a super close-up look of the first stars of that water pitcher of Aquarius. They are the first stars in the constellation of Aquarius that will be crossing that 0-degree line as we step into the new age. The stars of Pisces, that fish, have long since passed the 0-degree line. So you can say that we are no longer in the age of Pisces, because for quite a while now, The stars of Pisces are no longer rising due east. You see in this screenshot that all the stars in Pisces are well to the left of the 0-degree line. And here, the backdrop of stars are all moving slowly toward the left of the screen. So over the next hundreds of years, more and more of Aquarius will be rising due east, because they will all be ever so slowly moving to the left. So let's look up close at those stars of the water pitcher. Since the Mayan calendar ended the long count at winter solstice of 2012, which was the end of 2012, this is the year 2013 and 2016 and 2024 and 2030 side by side. And just take a look at the stars as they cross that zero line. Hopefully I made these pics big enough so you can really see what's going on here. It looks like by the year 2030, both of the stars of the water pitcher have crossed that 0-degree line of due east. And back in 2013, it looks like that first star of the water pitcher has just barely crossed the line. And maybe not even completely. But by 2016, it looks like we could safely make the call that that first star has completely crossed the line. And by 2024, you can see it's definitely crossed over right now. And that second star is halfway across the line as well, right now. Now this is a permanent thing. Like I said, the backdrop of stars here will slowly continue moving toward the left of the screen. And the 0-degree line is just going to be more and more into the constellation of Aquarius, no matter what time of year or from what location you are viewing it from. So at spring equinox, from here on out, the sun is definitely rising in the constellation of Aquarius. The age of Pisces is over. It is finished. I just don't see how anyone could argue that we are still in the age of Pisces. The door is closed on that age, and there's no going back. What you're staring at are the cold hard facts of the matter. And the truth is the sharpest sword you can have. Now that you've seen that one, and I think you understand what I'm looking at here, I've got another fun one that I think you'll be able to see another sign marking another defining moment in the history of the world. This is an overall view of Virgo, and what I'm interested in are the first stars of Virgo that will cross that 0-degree line of the grid. Since we are on the other side of the heavens here, the backdrop of stars will now be moving from the left to the right across our view as we are scrolling forward through time. This is 144 BC, around the time when the age of Pisces officially started, according to those exact 30-degree divisions of time on God's clock. And this is where the fall equinox was that I'm showing here, with the sun rising at exactly due east this day, around the knees of Virgo. The red E for east always seems slightly off center, but the sun really is sitting squarely on that 0-degree line here. So I'm interested in these two stars. One is Spica, that represents the ear of grain in Virgo's hand, and also that lower star that is making out her skirt in this stellarium artwork here. And you can see that if our backdrop of stars is moving from the left to the right, then these two first stars of Virgo have not yet crossed that zero line of due east on our grid. They still have a ways to go. So when do you think that happened? Well, let's zoom in and check out some dates. I'll try to keep both of these stars in the picture here, so I hope it's enough to see what's going on. Spica, the grain in Virgo's hand, is going to be the first star to cross that line as we progress through time. This is 40 BC, and it looks like Spica is just barely touching that line, and the lower star of the skirt is still not that close. So let's move up to 3 BC, and the year Jesus was born. And it looks like the star of Spica has now crossed the line. But if you look closely, that lower star of the skirt of Virgo is just right at the line. So let's move the clock up to 30 AD and the year when Jesus was crucified. Both of those first stars of Virgo have now clearly crossed the line of 0 degrees of the equatorial grid. So the first stars of Virgo crossing the line of due east happened during the life of Jesus. I would say that there really are star signs that can be so specific in marking out such historical events. I mean, how can this be? That you can see the very years that these first stars of Virgo, the Virgin, first crossed the line of exactly due east in the heavens. And this event only happens in one small space of time, during about a 33-year period, in a cycle of about 26,000 years. And it happened during the years of 3 BC to 30 AD, marking out the life and times of Jesus Christ here on earth. And I have to laugh because people accuse me of just making stuff up on my channel here, but I can assure you that what I'm showing is very real. And Stellarium is a very sophisticated computer program. It's not just making stuff up either, not by a long shot. Unless, of course, we are all just living in the Matrix. But you cannot deny that the universe was created by a divine power. In 2012, the most accurate calendar ever devised, what most know as the Mayan calendar, which is based on a 144,000 day cycle, or the biblical 400 years. Well, on winter solstice of 2012, that calendar ended a long count cycle after over 5,000 years, and it was the end of the fourth world. So, any way I look at it, I'm certain that by 2016, the age of Aquarius had officially begun. And it's not like we are going to turn back the clock on all this. You can see it with your own eyes. That's what I'm here for, to show you things that you can see with your own eyes and know for sure. What I'm most interested in is giving you the biggest sword you can carry. And I've got a few other interesting things to show you about some other ages. And since the equinoxes only move by 1 day or 1 step of the sun in 128 years, these exact year dates of the screenshots that I'll be showing you here are not that critical. So don't even try to argue that I could be off 10 or 20 or even 100 years. It's not critical to what I'm showing here. I mean, these screenshots of the general overall view of the changing of the ages, it's going to look exactly the same 50 years either way. So I think I'll just make the year 2016 my starting point to count from. And with Stellarium, you have to subtract 1 year when you move into the BC era, because Stellarium counts the 0 year. But I'm not concerned with that right now. 1 single year is not going to make a bit of difference in what I'm about to show you. This is what the fall equinoxes look like at the start and at the end of the age of Pisces. The fall equinoxes have been in Virgo for a long time, and it will be a while longer before she is completely out of the picture at the equinox, and it's off with her head. At the start of the age of Pisces, she was on her knees on the horizon at the equinox. And at the end of the age of Pisces, she is now being beheaded on the horizon at the fall equinox. As Leo will quickly be taking his position and his corner of the earth as the ruler of the fall equinox for the age of Aquarius. Some say the 4 corners of the earth are north, south, east, and west, but it's really God's divisions of the darkness and the light, the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices each year. And there are 4 beasts in heaven that occupy these positions during each age. John tells us in Revelation chapter 4 which 4 beasts he saw in heaven, and it is the solution to the puzzle of what he says that he saw standing at the 4 corners of the earth in Revelation chapter 7. When he gives us the 4 beasts in chapter 4, he's talking about the age of Aquarius, and I'll show what he means in Stellarium in a second. In chapter 4, verse 7, John writes that the first beast was like a lion, Leo, and the second beast like a calf, Taurus, and the third beast had a face as a man, Aquarius, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. That would be Scorpio, which has been known as an eagle in the past. There is some sort of ancient story about the scorpion changing into an eagle to escape the arrows of Sagittarius. And I think during the time of Abraham, this constellation was called an eagle. So this is what the wheel of heaven looks like. And John did give these in order around the clock. I've gone into quite a bit of depth with these wheels of heaven, so I won't go into it all in this video. So John tells us that he is looking at the age of Aquarius by naming these 4 beasts of heaven in chapter 4, verse 7. And the chapter 7 sign points us to a specific date in 2016. Much like the Revelation 12 sign points us to a specific date in 2017. And then the Revelation 15 sign points us to a specific date in 2024. So there really can be no question as to what time period John is giving us in the book of Revelation. And he also talks about a lot of the specific signs going on in the heavens during these years, such as the 3 great American eclipses. I'll go over in detail again in this series soon, with all my documents explaining it all better. This is what our 4 corners looks like right now in Stellarium, so you can get a visual of our current equinoxes and solstices as we begin this new age. This is the spring or vernal equinox, which usually falls around March 20th. And as we've all sharpened our swords a little, we know that the sun is actually beginning to rise in the constellation of Aquarius now. This is what the fall equinox looks like now, and it happens around September 21st or 22nd. About all we can see of Virgo at this point is her head, and after another few hundred years, we won't see her at all at the fall equinox. It will simply be Leo roaring off the horizon. This is sunrise at summer solstice, which used to show us the Gemini twins during the age of Pisces. But now we've got Taurus rising with the sun, the bull for our summer solstice, which happens around June 21st each year. And this is our winter solstice now, and we can't even see any of Sagittarius anymore. All we have is Scorpio for our sunrise moment of winter solstice, which happens around December 21st each year. So those are the 4 beasts in heaven that John saw when he was shown the future. So we know he's talking about the age of Aquarius. We hope that he's talking about the very beginning of the age. And as we read through the book of Revelation and solve his puzzles of signs in the heavens that he spells out that he saw, we are able to pinpoint exact dates, and the more we solve, the more revelation begins to unfold for us. Just as we were given a specific date of the Revelation 12 sign that was solved about 8 years ago at least. So let's just take a general look at which stars were rising in the east when the official changing of the ages occurred. Using my starting point of 2016 and subtracting or adding the 2,160 years for the length of the age, I wanted to take a look at the start of the other ages. These are 3 screenshots of the stars that were rising due east when each of these ages began. I mean, we couldn't ask for better signals than these. Just like the start of the age of Aquarius right now. You can see that the stars that were rising due east at the start of these other ages are of great significance for that age. For the start of the age of Aries, which was the age of Abraham and Moses, we have the star of Hamal rising due east each day, also known as the ram's horn or the shofar, which was such an iconic symbol for that age and the times of the Jews. For the start of the age of Pisces, we have the star of the harvest rising due east each day. It is the star named Spica, which is the ear of grain in Virgo's hand. And to end the age of Aquarius, we have the king star Regulus in the heart of Leo, rising each day in the east. It will also be the point of the equinox when the age of Aquarius ends. and marking what I call the stargates, which are simply the two equinoxes at the changing of the ages. It's all so significant, and only God could do all this. Blowing the shofar or ram's horn to begin the age of Aries, with the real defining stars of the age being Abraham and Moses. And then in Virgo's hand, that sheaf of wheat or grain ripe for the harvest, and the real star of the age being our Jewish Messiah, who came for the real harvest for God. And we all know what's coming for the age of Aquarius, and after another 2,000 some odd years, we will have the king star of Leo, the Lion of Judah, rising each day in the east to mark the end and the start of a whole new age. A couple of other interesting stars as big markers of the times was around the year 2000 BC, most likely during the time of Abraham's life. And each day, due east, we see Aldebaran, the main star of Taurus the bull, a red giant, the brightest star of that constellation, and one of the brightest stars in all of our night skies. And check out the star that always rose due east during the life of Samson, the shoulder of Orion, Betelgeuse, a red supergiant, and definitely one of the biggest, brightest stars around. If it were our sun, its outer surface would lie beyond the asteroid belt, and its massive size would completely engulf the orbits of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. It's just that gigantic. So that's just some fun stuff to wrap up this first episode of my No Frills teaching series on some things I've found interesting. I hope you enjoyed having a look at the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Have a super blessed day, my friends.